Before we begin today's heartbreaking case, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the cases that shake us to our core. Today's story is one that will challenge everything you think you understand about senseless violence. It's about two young women whose only crime was living their lives in the light, sharing their love and joy with the world. It's about a neighbor who watched from the shadows, harboring a darkness that no one could have predicted. And it's about a dispute so trivial that when you hear what sparked this tragedy, you'll be left asking the same question everyone in Huntsville, Alabama asked. How? How could something so small lead to something so devastating? This is the story of 20-year-old Sequoia Lamar and 24-year-old Deja Morris, a couple adored by thousands on TikTok and YouTube. Their lives were filled with love, laughter, and adventure, but on a quiet Tuesday morning in August 2023, their story would come to a violent and senseless end at the hands of someone who lived just doors away. The reason for the attack is one so unimaginable it will defy all understanding. So settle in, because this is a story that needs to be told. This is the tragedy of Sequoia and Deja. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be little snippets of my birthday vlog. So this is me before I get my hair done. It's nappy and everything else, but I'll be back when it's time to get washed and everything. That was Sequoia Lamar speaking directly to her camera with the kind of natural ease that most people spend decades trying to achieve. At just 20 years old, she had mastered something that remains elusive to so many content creators: genuine authenticity. Born on March 21, 2003, Sequoia Monet Lamar was a vibrant and talented young woman from Huntsville, Alabama. She was a gifted dancer whose movements told stories without words. She was a skilled hair braider whose work transformed people's confidence and beauty. But Sequoia was much more than her talents. She loved to showcase her creativity through dance videos that went viral, cooking demonstrations that often ended in laughter, and hairstyling tutorials that inspired her growing audience. Her life was filled with energy, joy, and an infectious personality that captivated thousands of followers on platforms like TikTok and YouTube. What made Sequoia truly magnetic wasn't just her skills or her smile, it was her authenticity. When she spoke to her camera, it felt personal, intimate, like she was speaking directly to you. She carried herself with a confidence that drew people in, making them feel like they were part of her journey, not just spectators watching from afar. But beyond her public persona, beyond the views and the followers, Sequoia was also a daughter, a sister, and a girlfriend. She was deeply loved by her family and close friends, who knew her for her kindness, her warmth, and her spirit. To them, she wasn't just a content creator, she was their light. Deja Monique Morris, known affectionately to her family as Ma Deed, was 24 years old when her life was cut short. Born on March 20, 1999, she grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, attended Joe Johnson High School, and worked at Aeropostale, balancing her professional responsibilities with a vibrant social life that revolved around the people she loved. Her brother, Dantes Morris, would later describe her in a way that perfectly captured her essence. She was like our Michael Jackson, you know? She was the star of the family, the star of the Fab Five. This wasn't just sibling pride talking. Deja genuinely had that rare quality, that star power that made her the center of attention wherever she went. Not because she demanded it, not because she forced it, but because her energy was simply magnetic. She could walk into any room and instantly light it up with her presence, her laughter, her spirit. Deja was known for her strong personality and loving nature. She was family-oriented, fun-loving, and full of life. Her family didn't just love her, they adored her. She was the glue that held people together, the person everyone wanted to be around. Together with Sequoia, Deja found not just love, but a true partnership. They were both bubbly, goofy, funny young women who complemented each other perfectly. What they built together would inspire thousands. What's up, y'all? I'm back with another video, and today I'm putting her in the hot seat. Y'all seen her on my channel before, but we never made a video together, so here we go. Introduce yourself. It's Alex, not the little, you know, period. This was Sequoia and Deja at their best. Playful, authentic, deeply in love, and completely comfortable sharing their relationship with the world. Their chemistry wasn't manufactured for the camera. It was real, and their followers could feel it. Sequoia and Deja shared their relationship openly on social media, becoming an inspiration to many. They documented their everyday adventures, from answering fan questions to offering relationship advice, allowing their followers to feel like they were genuinely part of their journey. They created dance challenges that went viral, their natural synchronization and obvious enjoyment making them stand out in a crowded social media landscape. Behind the scenes you seen crime stories gave fans access to their real daily life, the messy kitchens, the lazy Sunday mornings, the spontaneous adventures that filled their days. Their cooking demonstrations often turned into comedy shows because of their playful banter and infectious laughter. But what truly set Sequoia and Deja apart from other content creator couples was their refusal to create a fake, polished version of their relationship for social media. They shared vulnerable moments. They told embarrassing stories. They had real conversations about life, love, and their future together. They knew how to be open and engaging while still maintaining respect for each other's boundaries. In their hot seat video, you could see their dynamic on full display. So, your first question is, where's the craziest place you've had sex? I ain't gonna say I've had it in crazy places because I'm big on letting my girl have her privacy and let her be comfortable, so I'll say probably school. Yeah, I forgot about that, but yeah, school. These weren't scripted moments designed to go viral. This was genuine connection, the kind that can't be faked. Their followers didn't just watch their content, they invested in their love story. The 4400 block of Bunnell Drive in Huntsville, Alabama looked like any other apartment complex in Alabama. Modest buildings, shared parking areas, neighbors who knew each other's routines. But for Sequoia and Deja, this place represented so much more than just a roof over their heads. They had transformed their shared apartment into their creative headquarters, their safe haven, and the backdrop for content that reached thousands of followers. Deja had originally moved in as Sequoia's roommate, but their relationship had evolved far beyond a simple housing arrangement. The apartment became a symbol of their love, their independence, and their shared dreams. It was where they filmed their videos, where they cooked together, where they danced, laughed, and built their future. This apartment was their sanctuary. Tragically, this very apartment, the place that had nurtured their creativity and joy, would also become the place where both of their lives were violently taken. Everything was trending upward for Sequoia and Deja. Their relationship was solid, their content was engaging, their follower count was growing, their future looked incredibly bright. But as their success grew, so did the attention, not just from fans across the internet, but from someone much closer to home, someone who had been watching their every move from just a few doors away, someone who was quietly constructing a narrative that would justify the unthinkable. While Sequoia and Deja filled their apartment with creativity, laughter, and love, their neighbor remained something of an enigma. His name was Tai Deshawn Stevens, and he was 23 years old. Unlike Sequoia and Deja, whose lives were increasingly public through their videos and social media presence, Stevens kept his thoughts and feelings hidden. While others in the building knew the young couple as the friendly pair who filled their days with content creation and joy, Stevens remained more of a shadow figure. He was not part of the evening parking lot conversations. He didn't participate in the casual hallway exchanges that brought neighbors together. Instead, he seemed to prefer watching from a distance,
keeping himself apart from the community around him. What made Stevens capable of the violence that would eventually erupt remained a mystery even to those who lived closest to him. There were no obvious warning signs that neighbors could later point to, no prior incidents of aggression, no heated arguments that escalated, no troubling behavior that might have raised red flags. Yet something about Sequoia and Deja's success appeared to capture his attention in ways that went beyond casual neighborly interest. Their growing popularity, their visible happiness, their rising influence, all of it was unfolding in plain sight of someone who may have been quietly developing a deep-seated resentment. Whether Stevens followed their social media accounts remains uncertain, but living just doors away meant he didn't need to scroll through their feeds to know about their achievements. He could see it firsthand. He could witness their celebrations, the brand deliveries arriving at their door, the visitors coming to collaborate, the sound of their laughter echoing through the hallways. The shift from passive observation to active hostility did not happen overnight. Stevens had months to watch their routines, to witness their success growing, to construct whatever internal narrative he believed justified his eventual actions. Did he resent their happiness? Did their financial success fuel something darker within him? Did their visibility as a same-sex couple trigger something in his psyche? These unanswered questions would later become central to understanding the tragedy that unfolded. According to witnesses and investigators who later pieced together the events leading up to that fateful morning, tensions between Stevens and the couple had been building over something that should have been nothing more than a minor inconvenience: car tires. Yes, you heard that correctly. The dispute that would eventually cost two young women their lives began over a disagreement about car tires. In the close quarters of apartment living, small disputes are common: a parking spot, noise levels, shared spaces. These everyday frictions usually resolve themselves through conversation, compromise, or simply by neighbors choosing to let things go. But this situation was different. What should have been a minor neighborly disagreement began to take on a darker tone. The exact details of how the dispute evolved remain somewhat unclear, but what is certain is that Stevens was harboring violent intentions that no one could have anticipated.
For Sequoia and Deja, life continued as normal. They kept creating content. They kept building their brand. They kept planning for their future together. They had no way of knowing that just doors away, their neighbor was plotting something unthinkable. Tuesday, August 29, 2023, started like any other day on Bunnell Drive in Huntsville, Alabama. The sun rose over the modest apartment complex. People were getting ready for work. Some were already going about their morning routines. But at approximately 10:40 a.m., the peaceful neighborhood would be shattered by the sound that no community ever wants to hear: multiple gunshots echoing through the morning air. Police received reports of gunfire and rushed to the scene. When officers from the Huntsville Police Department arrived at the 4400 block of Bunnell Drive, they discovered a heartbreaking and chilling reality. Sequoia Lamar and Deja Morris were lying near their apartment, both fatally shot. The victims had been shot multiple times. Investigators would later determine that a total of 13 gunshots had been fired between the two women. 13 bullets that ended two bright lives. 13 shots that shattered two families. 13 rounds fired in broad daylight over a dispute about car tires. The tragedy unfolded in the middle of the morning, leaving the entire community shaken and horrified. These weren't strangers killed in a random act of violence. These were neighbors. These were young women who had filled the building with their energy and their joy. As detectives arrived and began piecing together the details of that fateful morning, they quickly identified a prime suspect: Tai Deshawn Stevens, the couple's 23-year-old neighbor.
Investigators believe that the ongoing dispute had escalated to a breaking point. Stevens had allegedly pulled out a gun and opened fire, killing both women in cold blood. By the time police arrived on the scene, Stevens had fled. Law enforcement immediately launched a search for Deshawn Stevens, issuing a be-on-the-lookout alert. SWAT teams and officers swarmed the area, initially believing that Stevens might still be in the vicinity, but he had already escaped. Within hours of the shooting, the Huntsville Police Department had launched a full-scale manhunt. The suspect was described as armed and dangerous, and authorities believed he had fled the area, possibly headed to Anniston, Alabama, or even out of state to Columbia, South Carolina. The U.S. Marshals Gulf Coast Regional Fugitive Task Force took over the search, using every tool at their disposal to track Stevens down. Authorities tracked his vehicle, a silver car with an unknown license plate, but Stevens remained elusive. News reports began flooding local media. Police are asking the public's help locating a man wanted in connection to last week's shooting on Bunnell Drive. 2 women were killed as a result, and Huntsville police are releasing this photo of Deshawn Stevens. The department says they have 2 capital murder warrants for Stevens related to those deadly shootings on Bunnell Drive. Major Crimes Unit investigators believe Stevens may be in Anniston, Alabama, or Columbia, South Carolina. Investigators believe he could be driving a silver vehicle. HPD is giving everyone a warning, saying anyone who sees Stevens should not attempt to make contact with him, but instead, anyone with information on his whereabouts should call HPD Major Crimes. For a week, Stevens evaded capture. Law enforcement agencies across multiple states were on alert. The families of Sequoia and Deja were left in anguish, knowing that the man accused of killing their loved ones was still out there, still free. But authorities caught a break. On Wednesday, September 6, 2023, exactly 1 week after the murders, U.S. Marshals located Stevens in Anniston, Alabama. He was arrested without incident and swiftly transported back to Madison County, where he was booked into the Madison County Jail on 2 capital murder charges.
The arrest marked a turning point in the case. Stevens, the suspect in the killings, was finally in custody. He was held without bond as the investigation continued to gather evidence and his legal team prepared for what would become a lengthy court process. While the arrest of Deshawn Stevens brought some measure of relief to the families of Sequoia and Deja, it could never undo the trauma of how they learned about the tragedy. Dantes Morris, Deja's brother, recounted the devastating moment he found out about his sister's death in an exclusive interview with local news. His words paint a picture of trauma that no family should ever have to endure. Nobody believed it. When she called me and told me that they found Dee passed away and Sequoia passed away, it didn't register in my head. Not until we saw Facebook, and there was a live video on Facebook of their bodies on the floor. Yes, it was kind of hard to find out that way. Imagine the horror. Imagine scrolling through social media and seeing a live video of your sister's body lying on the floor of her own apartment. That's how Dantes learned that Deja was gone. Not through a gentle phone call from police, not through a family member holding his hand as they delivered the news, but through a Facebook Live video that showed the aftermath of the violence. This method of discovering the death of a loved one was understandably traumatic, and his pain was palpable as he spoke about the devastation his family had been forced to endure. It's been a painful month for the Morris family as they deal with the painful reality of never seeing their loved one again, reporters noted. She was like our Michael Jackson, you know? She was the star of the family, the star of the Fab Five. She was family-oriented. So was Sequoia as well. They were both bubbly, goofy, funny little girls. Sequoia's mother, Shamika Lamar, also spoke to the media about her immeasurable loss. Her words were filled with the kind of pain that only a parent who has lost a child can truly understand.
Me and my family, my boys, my mother, dad, husband, everybody, we suffered a great loss. We're really just trying to pick up the pieces since the funeral and everything. It's been really hard and a tough struggle dealing with this." She described her daughter as very close to her, very talented, very sweet. Then she added words that would echo the sentiments of both families. "Her and her friend Deja did not deserve this, and I just ask for you guys to keep us in prayer. I just want justice for my daughter and Deja as well." Justice, that's what both families wanted. That's what they deserved. But no amount of justice could ever bring back Sequoia and Deja. No verdict could undo the trauma. No sentence could fill the hole left in the hearts of everyone who loved them. Beyond the emotional devastation, both families faced the heavy practical burden of paying for funeral expenses. A GoFundMe campaign was launched to help cover Sequoia's funeral costs. By the time of reporting, it had raised nearly $4,000, but it still fell short of the $8,000 goal. These families were not only grieving the loss of their loved ones, they were also struggling financially to give them the dignified farewell they deserved. While the families struggled to cope, the community rallied around them. The mayor of Huntsville organized a candlelight vigil at Carver Park to honor the lives of Sequoia and Deja. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had been touched by their story came together to remember two young women whose lives had been violently and senselessly cut short.
This vigil was a touching reminder of the profound impact these two women had on their loved ones, their friends, and their community. Even in death, Sequoia and Deja brought people together. Tai Deshawn Stevens' first court appearance was scheduled for September 20, 2023, where a judge would determine whether there was enough evidence to send the case to a grand jury. This hearing was crucial, as it would decide whether Stevens would face trial for the brutal killings. News reports from the hearing revealed shocking details. Quote, "The man accused of killing two women in Huntsville will now face a grand jury. Tai Deshawn Stevens is accused of shooting the two women on Bunnell Drive in August. Today, new details came out about that shooting. Stevens allegedly shot the victims 13 times between the two. Stevens and the victims were also neighbors. The three were allegedly in an argument about tires leading up to that shooting. 13 times, between two people, over an argument about tires. The judge did not make a ruling on whether Stevens would get bond at that initial hearing. On November 1, 2023, the case was formally presented to the grand jury, a critical stage in the legal process. The grand jury's task was to decide whether the evidence presented by the prosecution was strong enough to charge Stevens with capital murder. Given the overwhelming evidence, including eyewitness accounts, forensic analysis, and the fact that Stevens had fled the scene immediately after the murders, it was widely believed that the case would go to trial. Stevens' legal team, consisting of attorneys Chad Morgan and Larry Marsili, began fighting for his release on bond. However, on November 8, 2023, Stevens was denied bond. The prosecution emphasized the severity of the charges, 2 capital murders, and the fact that Stevens had not only shot both victims multiple times, but had fled the scene immediately after the killings. Given the overwhelming evidence, including eyewitness testimony and forensic analysis, the judge upheld the decision to deny bond, citing the dangerous nature of Stevens and the strong case against him. Stevens's defense attorneys attempted to argue for a lower bond, but this plea was swiftly rejected. Later, Stevens would request bond a second time. Once again, he was denied. News coverage from the second bond hearing stated, quote, "A man accused in a double murder from 2023 was denied a second requested bond this afternoon. Tai Deshawn Stevens faces 2 capital murder charges for shooting and killing 2 of his neighbors. Stevens was back in court today with his attorneys, looking for the judge to grant him bond this time around. Stevens was initially denied bond a year and a half ago, and as his family watched today, the judge came to the same decision. The evidence against Stevens was simply too strong. He would remain behind bars without bond, awaiting the trial that would determine his fate. In a status hearing, Madison County Circuit Judge Chris Comer checked in on where the case stood, making sure that neither side needed anything and that the case was flowing as it should. Then came the announcement that sent shockwaves through both families.
The Madison County District Attorney's Office confirmed they would seek the death penalty against Stevens, citing the brutality of the double homicide. The trial date was scheduled for August 17, 2026. When reporters asked Stevens' legal team about the upcoming trial, attorneys' responses were measured. "We always hope for a not guilty, always, but I mean we're way away from that at this point in time, and there's a lot of work to be done." When reporters asked Stevens himself if he had anything to say as he was leaving the courtroom, he simply shook his head, no. The tragic deaths of Sequoia Lamar and Deja sparked broader conversations throughout Huntsville and beyond. Conversations about gun violence, about domestic disputes, about how easily people with violent tendencies can access firearms. The fact that an argument over something as trivial as car tires could escalate into gunfire left many people questioning how such a thing could happen. How does a disagreement over tires turn into a double murder? How does a neighbor become a killer? Many within the community were left wondering how disputes, especially those involving weapons, can be addressed more effectively before they escalate into violence. Local organizations began raising awareness about conflict resolution and the importance of addressing underlying issues before they explode into tragedy. The case also led to renewed discussions about gun control and how easily firearms end up in the hands of people who may use them recklessly or violently. Lawmakers and advocates alike began calling for stronger gun laws and measures to ensure that weapons don't become tools of senseless violence. As the legal process continues, the families of Sequoia Lamar and Deja remain committed to ensuring that Tyone Stevens is held accountable for his actions. The tragedy has left an indelible mark on their hearts, but they continue to fight for justice on behalf of their loved ones. They hope that the court system will bring them some semblance of closure, though they know that no amount of justice can ever truly undo the pain they're experiencing. The trial is scheduled for August 2026. When that day comes, the world will be watching. The families will be there, seeking answers, seeking accountability, seeking justice for two young women who deserved so much more than the fate they received. Sequoia and Deja represented the beauty of love, adventure, and happiness. Their connection was evident to anyone who watched their videos, where they laughed, danced, and spoke openly about their lives. It was a relationship that embodied joy, resilience, and the strength of two people who stood side by side through everything. They were building something beautiful, a brand, a community, a life together, and it was all stolen from them in a moment of senseless violence. As we close this case today, let's remember Sequoia and Deja not for how they died, but for how they lived. Let's remember their laughter, their creativity, their love. Let's honor their memory by speaking out against senseless violence and supporting organizations that work to prevent tragedies like this from happening again. If no more lives are cut short due to senseless violence. Call to action. If this story affected you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others who need to hear it, and subscribe to Unseen Crime Stories for more deep dives into cases that need to be told. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment below telling us what you think about this case. How could this have been prevented? What needs to change in our society to stop disputes from escalating into deadly violence? Thank you for watching Unseen Crime Stories. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and never forget that behind every case are real people, real families, and real pain that deserves to be acknowledged. Justice for Sequoia, justice for Deja. Always.